EU arguments erupted last night over the bloc's response to the coronavirus crisis, as Emmanuel Macron's demand for 10% of the EU's GDP to be used sent shockwaves to Berlin and Angela Merkel. EU leaders clashed last night over how to rescue their battered economies following the unprecedented coronavirus crisis. Emmanuel Macron said that Europe has no future unless the EU 27 agree to a huge €1.5 trillion plan that was also backed by Spain and Italy. He said that this figure amounts to around 10% of the EU's GDP, an estimate that has sent shockwaves to Germany, Sweden, the Netherlands and other northern countries. While the EU leaders agreed on Thursday to build a €1 trillion emergency fund to help recover from the coronavirus pandemic, there was no consensus on how this would be funded. The skeptical northern countries are wary after President Macron detailed a plan for the grants to be paid out. In a rare move, the European Council President, Charles Michel, decided not to ask EU leaders to sign off a formal summit text, out of fear that the divisive details would spark an embarrassing all-night row. EU Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen admitted that arguments have been exchanged tonight but in a very constructive manner. She noted, there will certainly be a sound balance between grants and loans, and this is a matter of negotiation within the group of member states, and added that both had pros and cons. Angela Merkel reiterated her opposition to the idea of shared EU debt, saying, "It is not acceptable that debts are mutualized." However, amid a looming showdown, Mr. Macron threw his weight behind the idea of huge financial transfers to the hardest-hit countries. He explained, "Europe has no future if we cannot find a response to this exceptional shock." Mr. Macron said that the rescue package should be worth at least 5 to. The French president continued, "No consensus is reached today. But it is an answer that we will have to provide. If we let part of Europe fall, all of Europe will fall with it." He added, "Several instruments are being discussed. What matters is that the response is big enough, financed by debt that is put forward and guaranteed jointly, and that there is, on the other end of it, proper budgetary transfers to the hardest-hit regions and economic sectors." As anticipated, the leaders had earlier endorsed a €540 billion rescue package drafted by their finance ministers earlier this month. Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte warned that the health emergency meant that the EU was now facing a political emergency as well. Italy, which has suffered the deadliest outbreak in Europe to date, had urged its EU partners, especially Germany and the Netherlands,